Welcome CMS art students to lesson 5. We've got a real fun sculpture lesson this week. We're going to be taking found objects from around our house and taping or gluing them together to create fun sculptures. These do not have to be permanent sculptures, but they can be.
All right, everybody, I'm about to put together my found object sculpture. So I have here a Pixar kind of desk lamp. I have a gray towel, a gray washcloth, pair of socks, one long gray sock, a rubber band, 2 cans, and 2 kitty cat toys. So we're gonna see how I can put this together. I've got my little thing of scotch tape right here because I think that's what I'm gonna use to temporarily hold everything together so you guys can see how this can be done. So I'm gonna start with the towel and I'm just gonna wrap it around. I'm gonna stuff this in here because I don't want this shown. So I'm just gonna wrap it around to create the body of my elephant. Then I'm gonna make the tail for the elephant. So I'm gonna use a washcloth and I'm just gonna roll it up like this. And elephants have that little thing at the end of their tail, like a little tuft of hair. So I'm gonna use a rubber band here to kind of band it at the end and see if I can get that look with what I've got. Just gonna go around just enough times to where it's nice and tight. And hey, that kind of looks like an elephant tail. So I'm gonna put it around on this side so you guys can see. Next, I'm gonna add his feet, which I'm just gonna place right in front of it. He's got one shorter leg and one taller leg, but that's okay. He's not a perfect elephant. Okay, so these socks, they're not really gray. They're kind of an off-white, but they'll do. These are gonna be the ears. So I'm gonna put them on kind of like this. Okay, so I'm going to use a piece of tape. And this long sock is going to be the trunk. So I'm going to fold it over a little bit, get rid of the black heel. And now I've got 2 little areas to tape, so I'm just gonna get 2 pieces of tape. You might hear my kitty meowing in the background. He wants to be a part of the video. Okay, so I'm gonna tape that part on. I'm gonna get a second piece of tape and do the top just to make sure it's secure enough to take a picture. Okay, I like that. And the 2 kitty cat toys, the balls, are going to be the eyes, so we'll see how that looks. And there you have it. There is my found object elephant sculpture. I can't wait to see what you guys make. Keep watching for an intro or a tutorial on how to do a foil sculpture. What do you think of my sculpture, Buzz? Do you like it? Okay, bye-bye. You can make some pretty amazing things out of aluminum foil. All right, so now I'm gonna demo how to do the foil sculpture. So I got myself 1 big sheet of foil and 1 little sheet for the accents. I'm gonna do a betta fish. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's one of those little fish you can buy in the pet store with the really pretty tails. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start by folding my foil into a smaller shape. That makes it easier to mold. I would fold it about twice, maybe 3 times, depending on how big your object is. And I'm just gonna start sculpting the body of the fish. Now guys, don't worry about getting this 100% perfect because mine isn't going to be either. The goal of this is to be, just thinking creatively and thinking about a 3D form. What does it look like on both sides, in the front and the back? And that's the challenge of this exercise. So just have fun, pick an animal or an object you like, and create a sculpture. So I know that they kind of have skinnier fish bodies, so I'm gonna try to squeeze in a little bit. And I'm gonna kind of try to squeeze on both sides so that the head is rounded. Try to make it fish-like. And then the tail is really floofy and it has different sections. So I'm wanting to create about 3 different sections. You can rip, tear, scrunch up, whatever you need to do to create the form that you're trying to make. Fins are very flowy. They kind of go spread out on both sides. And I don't really need to tape anything together right now because I'm just forming my shape. Try to split this apart a little bit. Now if you squeeze too much, that's okay. You can just unsqueeze it. But once you do squeeze it really hard, or the harder you squeeze it is tough to get back in its original shape. So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna squeeze in where the body ends and where the tail starts because that's usually how it goes. I see another image in mind. It almost also looks like a fox with a big long tail. But I'm making a betta fish, so this is the body and this is the tail. Squeeze in a little bit here. Let's check the other side. Okay, looking pretty good. So now I want to start adding things like fins and eyes. Just kind of altering the tail here. So there's many ways to do it. You could form it out of your actual shape. I've kind of pushed down too hard, so I'm gonna need to add my fins on, but you can absolutely form them out of your shape. So I'm just gonna lay this down here. And I'm gonna rip a piece off of my thin slice of foil, and I'm gonna make a fin. I'm thinking about what is the shape of a fin, and I'm kind of folding and squeezing my foil in the shape that I think that would be. I know betta fish kind of have long, slender fins. So I'd probably stick that right here on this side. So I'm going to squeeze in there so it'll be really easy to stick on. Okay, then I'm gonna grab some tape. Now you guys can use glue, hot glue, anything you've got around the house. Just make sure you ask your parents for permission before using it, especially if it's theirs and not yours. Okay, so I've got a piece of tape on here. I know this isn't gonna stick amazing, but it just needs to stick together long enough for a photo. Now, if you guys are wanting to make something more permanent, I would suggest hot glue or washable school glue. Okay, so there's a fin. I'm gonna add one to the other side because remember, in sculpture or form in art, it's really important to pay attention to what both sides look like. It's not a flat 2D thing. It is a rounded 3D thing, object. So I'm gonna make another fin for the other side. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna smush it in. Maybe I want this fin to be facing the other way. So I'm just gonna smush it in to make sure it's got somewhere to go when I tape it on. I roll my tape because I've found that is a bit easier than taping over the fin. It doesn't stick too well when you do that. But you're welcome to try it and see how it goes. Okay, I've got my 2 fins on. So now I'm gonna make a fin for the top of the head, the dorsal fin. one that goes up here. Now this one needs to be flat on the bottom because it's gonna sit on top of the fish. So that's gonna be a little tricky. I'm gonna show you how to do that. You wanna curl it under. And remember, it's a 3D form, so don't flatten it too much. If you mess up, it's okay. You can always get another piece of foil or just unfold it. Okay, so I've flattened it back here, but I don't want to flatten the whole thing. I'm just going to flatten the bottom. And sometimes it helps me to flatten it up against a table or a floor, any flat surface, because now I know that this bottom is flat. It may also help to flatten the surface on your sculpture so that they lay flush together, or as flush as possible. And there you have it. Not the best dorsal fin in the world, but hey. If you curve it over like this, it looks a little more accurate. So I'm going to do 2 tiny tape rolls, and you can see how tiny this is. I'm going to put it on the bottom. Here's one, and it's not wanting to stick too good. Be careful not to over touch your tape because, as we all know, tape that's touched too much isn't sticky anymore. Because tape doesn't work amazing on foil, we want to make sure not to touch it too much for sure in this case. So I'm gonna hold that down pretty good. And the last thing I'm gonna make is the eyes. Now, to make balls, it's a little tricky. I'm just gonna peel off just a little bit, and I'm just gonna crinkle it together, getting all the sides until it's as circular as possible. Again, it's not gonna be perfect. This is not a perfect circle, but I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna flatten it, just push it down on one of the sides so that it'll be easier to stick it on. I'm gonna try to flatten the head a little bit too. Okay. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna get a roll of tape and stick it on. Again, I would recommend glue if you have glue. I do not have glue, so I'm having to work with what I have, like a lot of us are doing. All right, we've got an eye. You can see how from the front it sticks out a little bit, looking more 3D. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick the eye on the other side, and then I will be finished. Now you can see how little foil I'm using for the eye. The eye is supposed to be small. If I were to use that whole thing, that fish would have a giant eye. So same thing, just lightly press on all sides until you get a somewhat circular shape. Then push down so that one side is flat. Okay, grab you a little tape roll. And stick on the eye. Be really careful not to touch any of the other parts that are taped on because I almost ruined this dorsal fin here. All right, my betta fish is all finished.